everybody for joining us this afternoon. So we are pleased to welcome two colleagues from the Department of Statistics. And here to introduce them today is another member of the Department of Statistics, Dr. Claudio Fuentes, who's an assistant professor there, but he's also part of our public health family, and that's one of the things I wanted to make sure to convey to you. He's an adjunct professor here in our College of Public Health and Human Sciences. So thanks, Claudio.
Well, thank you everyone for coming to the College of Public Health and Human Sciences seminar series. My face is not familiar to you because you just don't know me yet, but hopefully that's going to change by the end of the talk today. So what I'm going to do is that I want to introduce the speakers, and then we're going to start all introducing each other in different permutations. So today we're going to just discuss a brief overview of what are the research interests and the type of things that we do, or we are currently doing to say it better in the Department of Statistics. And the two speakers today are going to be Duo Yang and Sarah Emerson. Duo Yang is an assistant professor in the department. He joined the department in 2014, coming from the University of Chicago. Sarah Emerson is an associate professor now in the Department of Statistics. She joined us in 2010, coming from Stanford University and studying for a little while in Harvard University in public health. So I'm not going to say anything regarding their research interests because I don't want to spoil the content of the talk. So let's...
All right, thank you, Claudio. Can you all hear me okay? And the mic seems to be working? Good. All right. So our plan today is to just give you a general overview of the department structure and the different programs we run and the research interests of each of the faculty to hopefully encourage you to collaborate with us and, hang out with us in your spare time. So just first, our basic statistics. We're located in Winiger Hall now. We just moved there from Kidder. We have 16 graduate faculty with Virginia Lessor as our department chair for the last 4 years, I believe. Is that right? Yeah. We also have 3 instructors who teach many of our undergraduate service courses, and we have 3 research assistant faculty who help with, among other things, the Survey Research Center. We also have a number of emeritus and adjunct and courtesy faculty, some of whom are in public health, and we have a few in forestry and spread out around the rest of the university. We also have office administrators, and then we have currently around 20 PhD students. We've been trying to grow our PhD program a little bit, and we have 35 master students. Those numbers obviously fluctuate a bit year to year. We run a number of on-campus degree programs, so our PhD and masters in statistics, as well as statistics minors that are fairly popular for students in a number of different fields, including engineering, forestry, and fish and wildlife. We also have an undergraduate minor, and we have a statistics option in the Bachelor of Science for math. So those are all of the on-campus degree programs that our department supports, but we are also now offering 2 new online degree programs. So these are 100% online programs, one of which is a Master of Science in Data Analytics, which consists of core classes in both statistics and computer science, along with electives in statistics. And then we're also offering a graduate certificate in data analytics, which is just 5 core classes in Stat and CS. These programs both started this year, and they're just getting off the ground, so we're still adding courses to our offerings. Duo is going to tell you about a few of the more specialized services our department offers.
So one of the things we like doing in the statistics department is statistical consulting. So we offer, consulting service to the whole university community, and both our students and our faculty do that. So for our student service, we have master students and PhD students offering free, consulting service and advice to both graduate students and faculty on this campus in the whole university, actually. And these consulting projects are under this consulting practicum platform, which is for a 2-credit class for these students, and they are advised by at least one of our faculty member. And our faculty also offer consulting service, and these are more extensive consulting projects, and these are in particular free for if you or your project is in any way affiliated with the College of Agricultural Sciences, but we do offer service to the whole community, the university community as well. And our consulting lab is currently directed by Alex Gilman, and we have detailed information about our consulting service on our webpage as well. And so in our department, we have the Survey Research Center that is currently directed by our department chair, Virginia Lessor. So this center offers a full range of help regarding survey research, including how to select the sample and develop a questionnaire, collect the data, analyze, processing and analyzing data, and producing summary reports. So since establishment in 1973, we've had clients ranging from governmental agencies, public interest groups, and many units across this university. The director, Ginny, is an expert in survey research and has been the director since I think 1993. So if you have if you need help or need advice, in your research projects involving surveys, this would be a good resource, I think. And last thing about the overview of our department is about our weekly research seminars, which are on Mondays from 4 to 5 o'clock. We usually post our upcoming seminars on our website, the title and the speaker. And if you're interested, you're also encouraged to join our email list to receive weekly announcements and reminders about these seminars. And here is just a list of a couple of recent talks. So we have people coming from very diverse fields talking about social research as well as big data applications in the industry. Some of them are related to public health research. And then we'll go through each of us research interests and activities in the departments, and Sarah will start introducing them.
So as Duo said, the rest of our talk, we're just going to give you a brief introduction to each of our faculty members and what their specific research interests are, so that if you have any overlapping interests, you might get together with them and start a collaboration. And we're going alphabetical order by last name. So our first is Sharmadeep Bhattacharya, who's an assistant professor in the Department of Statistics, joined, 3 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
2.5? He came at an unusual time, so not quite 3 years. So Sharma works in a variety of areas, including high-dimensional data analysis, both predictive learning and estimation and inference for temporally and spatially varying high-dimensional data. And he works on robust estimation techniques, so non-parametric methods, learning methods. He also has done a fair bit of work in network data analysis, both with the goal of constructing networks, so given data relating different processes, different genes, different people, constructing a network that connects them on the basis of some qualities of interest. And also he works on inference for the networks that he constructs, so which of those connections are meaningful. He also does some more statistical methodological work on time-varying or dynamic networks, so where the network changes over time. So for instance, we're looking at a Facebook friends group, looking at how those friend connections are changing over several years. He also looks at inference on networks with edge and node covariance, so when there are multiple qualities for those edges or for the connections that we want to learn about. Some current projects that he's been working on include human and rat brain analysis based on ECOG array data with a colleague at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. He's also been working on some hops disease studies here at OSU and irrigation practices in vineyards. And he is open to many more applications and collaborations in a wide variety of areas. Our next faculty member, alphabetically, is Yanming Di, who works primarily in statistical genetics topics, so statistical analysis of biomedical and biological data, including linkage and association studies, so identifying and locating genes that are associated with various phenotypes and pathologies. He works on RNA-seq data, and he's just completed a major grant studying analysis and visualization of RNA-seq data. So finding, again, genes whose expression is associated with certain phenotypes and various environmental conditions. And then he also does a fair bit of work on statistical software development and statistical computing. So he's developed a number of R packages that are used in analysis of RNA-seq data and genomic data in general. His major overarching themes include answering biological questions from genetic expression data, RNA-seq data, and helping biologists understand the implications of the design of their experiments. So what questions can we answer from an experiment that's designed in this way? And trying to communicate the statistics in a way that is easily interpretable to the public. So he's done a fair bit of work on visualizing big data sets and has a collaboration with a colleague in computer science on working on visualization techniques. Next up is me. So as Claudia mentioned, this is my 7th year here. And I've worked in a couple areas since joining OSU and before. So one of these topics is sequential and adaptive trial design and analysis, which is a technique to more efficiently make use of data as it comes in, rather than gathering one sample size and analyzing it all at once. The idea is that we can get an intermediate sample size, analyze that data, and decide if we want to get more. Now, of course, there are additional complications that come along with these additional benefits, so we have to carefully think about how you analyze data at the end of the study, accounting for the fact that you've peaked multiple ways through. And there are a number of complications that come up as we do this. The main point I wanted to make here was that this idea was initially developed around the time of World War II, and it was so successful at improving the efficiency of quality control measures that it was classified until the war was over. But a lot has been developed in the last 20 years as well. My other major research interests include high-dimensional data analysis and statistical learning techniques, including classification and prediction problems. Been looking recently with some students at response-driven model flexibility, so trying to improve the flexibility of models like random forests and neural nets, which are generally considered fairly flexible models, but in certain really bizarre response settings, they still need some help. I've also done some work on clustering and unsupervised methods and variable selection and dimension reduction in, again, high-dimensional data. So this is just an example of a project I've worked on where the goal is to cluster the rows into groups based on the values in the columns. So you can think of the columns as biological attributes, say blood pressure and height and weight, and each row is a different person. So I want to group them based on the biological attributes. The challenge is that in many cases, only a few of these biological attributes actually have meaningful information for the grouping. And so my goal is to simultaneously identify which of the variables can help me with the grouping and form the grouping. And there are a number of different proposed methods that try to address this problem. They're generally called sparse clustering because we are identifying just a few out of a large number of variables that are relevant to the clustering. What I've looked at is a sparse clustering approach using basic matrix decomposition algorithms. With that, I will let Duo talk about our next few faculty.
Okay. So this is Claudio Fuentes, who introduced Sarah and me. Unfortunately, he's no longer here, I guess. Excuse me. Claudio originally came from Chile, and he got his PhD from the University of Florida and joined OSU in 2011. So he's done, he has a very broad interest in applied statistics, and here are just a couple of projects he's currently working on, which include clustering and classification, post-selection inference, and Bayesian analysis and time series. So in this particular project, he's looking at in particular HCG profile, HCG trajectories as it relates to normal and abnormal pregnancies. Claudio has a very keen interest in collaborations, so he's always open to conversations with people from other fields. So if you, if you have some idea for collaboration, you can feel free to contact him for coffee. And then Alex Gilman is a professor in our department, and her research interest is in environmental and ecological statistics. She's done a lot of things in this field, and some current projects includes NRT, which is a National Research Traineeship program funded by NSF that aims to train multidisciplinary scientists in the field of risk and uncertainty quantification in marine science. And she's also working on visualization of uncertainty in high-dimensional settings. And she's also an expert in Bayesian statistics. So she's working on Bayesian priors for sparse nonlinear regression models. And she also is very interested and has devoted a lot of her efforts on statistical consulting. So she's consulted and collaborated with many scientists in the College of Agricultural Sciences. And she is also the director of our consulting program. So she leads our statistical consulting practicum, which is for our master's and PhD students who provide consulting service to the university. And this would be me. A main research area of mine is statistical genetics and genomics. So I'll give you 2 examples of kind of projects I'm working on right now. So one involves pathway analysis or functional gene set analysis. So we were looking at this data set from a study on Huntington's disease. The goal there is to try to identify gene pathways that are associated with this particular disease. And turns out that current methods do not work very well for this kind of data sets because they do not properly model the kind of relationships between different genes across the whole genome. So we developed our own method called MECA to address the problem of how to find pathways differential associated with a phenotype or differential between 2 groups of samples. And these are not just gene pathways. These could be for metabolomic data when you have groups of metabolites or when you have families of proteins. So advantage of our methods compared to the other method is that it accurately controls false positives. So our control is very accurate, and the other methods either control false positives too liberally or too stringently to the point that they do not identify the signals that are actually. So in this particular data set on Huntington's disease, we found out of more than 1,000 pathways, we found 89 associations, whereas our competing methods only found either none or just 3. So and one other area I like to work on is microbiome data analysis. So we have a lot of samples of microbial communities where we measure the abundance of different bacteria. And one thing I like to look at is to see how these different bacteria interact with each other through graphical model techniques, and also look at how the microbial signatures associate with different diseases and phenotypes, and or integrating the microbiome data with other types of data like metabolomics data to see how the whole thing contributes to an outcome. And just a list of a couple of other things I'm interested in, other kind of biological problems or data types, and some recent projects. So that's me. Oh, yeah. So we have Sarah take over to introduce the next couple of faculty members.
Okay, so next up in our alphabetical list is Yin Ling, who works on statistical methods and theory for large-scale data, again, from biological research areas, including microarrays, genome-wide association studies, RNA-seq data, metabolomics, and microbiome data, along with a few of our faculties as collaborators. And he has worked in particular on high-dimensional regression classification problems, non-parametric, semi-parametric tests for these settings, data and information integration, and estimating inverse covariance matrices, which can be a challenge when we're in a really high-dimensional setting. And these covariance matrices are very important for understanding the relationship between different variables, but we often have fairly sparse information. So he's worked on some penalized methods for coming up with good estimators of these large covariance matrices to understand relationships between the different variables. Here's just one example of that particular application. So this is in Gaussian graphical models. You can think network data. He has two different settings here, setting A on top and setting B on the bottom, showing the true network that we would hope to discover and what we get if we use a conditional covariance approach, so actually appropriately sparsifying the covariance matrix, versus what we get if we use just our raw marginal correlation estimates, which obviously gives us these incorrect networks on the right side here. So it's important, especially in this high variable setting, to appropriately account for the fact of limited data on these giant matrices and make use of any known sparsity information. He's also been very involved, along with Duo and several other of our faculty, on biological and statistical networks, specifically in microbiome analyses. So he's looked at microbe-microbe interactions. So how does one type of microbe interact with another type? And to do that, he's used techniques such as the graphical lasso, estimation of these sparse inverse covariance matrices, and used compositional count data. He's also looked at microbe environment networks and interactions, as well as the impact of environmental variation on the microbial interactions. So sort of a three-way interaction there, environment versus microbe-microbe interactions. To do that, he's used techniques like neighborhood selection and high-dimensional regression techniques, which he's developed methodology and inference for, along with the application. Next up is our department chair, Virginia Lessor, who, as Duo mentioned, is the head of our survey research center as well. So she's devoted her career to working on techniques in survey methodology and sampling. And so she's an expert in sampling techniques. She often consults with the government on census data. She's worked with the Oregon Department of Transportation on the annual survey they send out to find out about road satisfaction among Oregon drivers. She's worked with NOAA to find out about fisheries usage and availability, which is a challenging survey topic. She works on adjustments for non-response in surveys, which is becoming an ever-increasing problem as people stop having landlines and stop responding to their physical mail. So it's an ongoing research topic to figure out how to get a good selection of people to respond to a survey. And she's done some work in environmental statistics, again, from the sampling side, so looking at how to get a reflective probability-based sample from an environmental study. So Ginny's a good person to talk to if you're planning on designing a study, and she's a good person to talk to before you design a survey, so that she can give you some of the insights she's garnered over the last 25 years. Next up is Lisa Madson, an associate professor in our department, who works on research topics involving dependent data and complicated dependent structures. So one of her primary research interests is what are called copula models, which are a way to flexibly model the dependence relationship between different variables independently of their marginal distributions. So no matter what the marginal distributions are, say one variable we think is something like a Poisson and one might be gamma, we can use a copula model to relate those two variables to each other with a wide form of dependence between them. She also has worked on simulation in, again, dependent data settings, so simulating realistic dependent data. How do we generate variables x and y in a way that looks like realistic data and such that they are related to each other in a desired way? And this can be very important to be able to simulate data like this when we are trying to do sample size calculations in non-standard settings. She's also been working with a few of her graduate students on estimating population size with imperfect detection. So this comes up in a lot of ecological studies where we go out and try to observe, say, a bird. If we don't see it, does that mean it's not there, or does it just mean that we didn't see it, but it was hiding or it was camouflaged? In particular, she's applied some of these techniques to trying to estimate bats and birds that are killed by windmills in the big wind farms. Again, which is a hard problem because when they're killed by a windmill, they fall somewhere within, a quarter-mile radius of that windmill. So it's a very hard area to search. So based on the searching we can do, what can we say about what's probably out there. She's also been looking at how to estimate the number of spawning salmon in Oregon, again with this imperfect detection problem.
So the next one alphabetically is Catherine McLaughlin. So Katie is our newest faculty member who joined us in last year, coming from UCLA. So a major research area of her is sampling methodology. So she's looked at a number of sampling techniques, including adaptive sampling, network sampling, respondent-driven sampling, and the missing data and biases that come from these sampling techniques. So she's also interested in looking at social network analysis. So a number of models that are useful for social networks. There's the random graph models using exponential families and dynamic network models and missing data in these kind of network data. And she's also interested in Bayesian methods, social science applications of statistics. In particular, she's done a lot of work that has a strong connection with public health. So in this area, in this topic on respondent-driven sampling, she's looked at how to use this kind of network sampling technique to access those hard-to-reach populations. The application is HIV/AIDS, where people at high risk for HIV and AIDS could be actually hard to reach using conventional sampling techniques. So we could use this thing called respondent-driven sampling, which is not a standard technique to do random sampling in the population to actually get access to those populations. But then if we use this special sampling technique to collect our data, there is some complications involved in our data analysis process. So essentially, there could be biases as you estimate the prevalence and population size of those high-risk groups. And how do you correct for those biases? How do you account for the fact that you've done a very special kind of sampling and in your data sets? And so this, she's done a lot of work in this area, and her projects are collaborative with a lot of epidemiologists, and the methods have been used across the world in many circumstances. And so next one is the Bachismondo, who joined the department in 2014. So he's an expert in spatial statistics. He also does MCMC and a lot of other statistical methodologies, and those methods. Using those methods, he's looked at a lot of applications, including anomaly detection, ecology, global seismology, and also looked at pollutants and toxins, how those things are distributed, in various parts of the world. He's also interested in looking at random tree and how those theories could be used in modeling anomalies and problems in molecular dynamics. He's also interested in looking at agricultural trials, biological assays, and graphical models and applications in statistical ecology. Okay, so the next one be Javier Rojo. He's actually our newest senior hire in the department who just joined the department this term. His research interests are mostly theoretical, but a lot of these problems are motivated by applied problems in science and engineering, including environmental sciences, finance, and biomedical sciences. So in terms of the theoretical research interests, he's done a lot of things. In particular, partial orders of probability distributions, statistical decision theory, survival analysis, dimension reduction, and so on. But he's also done a fair bit of collaborations with material scientists, engineers on analysis of the reliability of power grids, and with pediatric surgeons to do survival analysis, and with molecular biologists to study bacterial resistance. And he's also very interested, devoted a lot of his efforts on developing human resources for the mathematical and statistical community.
So our last three are Thomas Sharpton, who's actually a joint appointment in statistics and microbiology with his major home as microbiology, but he has some very fruitful collaborations with a few of our other faculty investigating microbial communities in the human gut and looking at how they affect our physiology and chronic diseases and general welfare. So as has started to be a hot topic in the last 5 to 10 years, we're learning that the gut microbiome is very important in its contributions to our health and our response to pathogens and diseases. And so his goal is to understand the interactions between our gut microbiome and the environment and our genetics and physiology to see how, A, we can modify those things, and B, I guess primarily understand them. So the major techniques he uses are metagenomic sequencing, so to assess what the microbial communities in the gut are, and then data integration methods to understand the interactions between the different microbial communities and the consequences for the human physiology. So he's performed a number of studies investigating these gut microbiome conditions to perform inference and discover ways to predict and prevent chronic disease. Charlotte Wickham has been with our department 6 years and is currently a half-time. She wanted that to be made very clear, so she's less open for collaborations, although she's a very popular collaborator because she has a lot of interest and experience in data visualization as well as software development. So she's very involved in the R software community. She's also done a lot of work on getting students involved in data visualization and software development projects and techniques. And she does some work in machine learning and prediction classification problems. But she teaches our annual data visualization class and has some very good insight into how to effectively communicate statistical information graphically and quickly. Lin Shu is an associate professor, very prolific in her publications on non-parametric and semi-parametric models, which are models that have a very flexible functional form. So the shape of your model is estimated from the data using techniques like splines, which allows us to have a much more flexible model space than just, say, linear regression. She's in particular looked at what are called additive models, partial linear models, varying coefficient models, and additive coefficient models, all of which come under this general heading of semi-parametric model forms. So this graph here is just a display of some estimated functional forms from data where the solid line is the true relationship and the dashed line is the non-parametrically estimated functional form. In specific applications, she's looked at estimation in these semi-parametric models, shape-constrained estimation. So if you know something like y should increase as x increases, you can apply that constraint and then estimate a model. There's still a lot of models that are available if you have a monotonicity or a shape constraint. She's also looked at hypothesis testing, which is a challenging topic in this area, and model selection. She has applied these semi-parametric model techniques to longitudinal data, survey sampling, missing data problems, and she's also looked at the problem of feature selection in these very flexible models, as well as high-dimensional settings. And that is the end of our faculty research overview. So we'd be happy to take any questions that we might be able to answer, or we can give you contact information for any of our faculty.
We've got a significant number of faculty involved in microbiome-related projects, and I'm wondering what role or how much your faculty played a role in OSU's general microbiome efforts that crystallized around Tom Sharpton's efforts.
This might be a question best suited.
That initiative on campus.
So in the department, we currently have Tom and Yuan and me primarily working with this collaborative project centering around microbiome data. I think both Yuan and, of course, Tom as well, all of us are involved in this the initiative there. In particular, we're having an event in 2 weeks on campus on microbiome research, and I'll be giving a short presentation here, there. So yeah, we're very involved with Tom's efforts on campus here. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, it can be to you as well. Thank you both for hearing a lot more about what's going on in the statistics department. There's a lot more there than the website. So it's wonderful to hear what you have to say. I have a question about getting students involved across departments and things like that. Is it best to maybe have them come through your seminars, or do you have working group meetings where students can come in and start to learn a little bit more? Like how could we start to cross-pollinate a little more?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think our department chair, Ginny, is thinking about ways and creative ways to, building the connection with public health. And I think the seminar is a really good opportunity for students coming from outside to learn about what we do in the statistics department. And I think we've had external students coming to our seminars, actually enrolled. Our seminars are offered to the students as a 1-credit class. So we've had external students joining the class actually for credits. And do we have working groups centering?
They're largely informal, right?
Yeah, they're right. We have journal clubs. Do you want to? Yeah.
So various faculty members have very informal working groups, but no, regular scheduled meetings that are publicly announced. But we do have often journal clubs and working groups that are open to the public. Also, our minor program is at least for master's students, a fairly accessible way to get connections to the stat department. All you have to do is take 4 courses in statistical methods and theory. So that is a popular way for students who have some interest in getting more connection to statistics to approach it. They get assigned, or they choose a statistics faculty member as a minor advisor, and that builds a connection. There is some course redundancy if they are already in the biostatistics arm of public health, but otherwise it seems like a good fit for most people. Yes.
We have other questions?
Yes.
Do you know how many faculty in STAT have adjunct appointments in public health?
I know of one. Do you know of any others? Yeah, I think people who are primarily in stat, we have Claudio, who has an adjunct appointment in public health. I think there's a few more that go the other way. Yes?
Could you just speak a little bit to the differences or the pros and cons of doing like a grad certificate versus a minor?
That's a good question. The question was the pros and cons of the grad certificate versus the minor. The most glaring difference is the venue. So whether you want to take on-campus courses or online courses, and there are definitely pros and cons to both of those media. In terms of credit load, they are identical. In terms of content, the graduate certificate has 3 statistics courses and then 2 CS courses, whereas the minor is just 4 statistics courses, and it has a little bit more emphasis on statistical theory. So you have to take 2 theory courses and then 2 methodology courses, so applied courses. So I would say that the on-campus version, the minor, is a little bit more towards the theoretical side of statistics, and the graduate certificate is a little more towards the analytical, practical side. Anything else? Hi, yeah.
I was just wondering how like a lot of these projects get funding? Is it NIH, because a lot of it seems biomedical, or is it collaborating with other grants, or how do faculty typically get their research funded?
That's a great question, and I'll let Duo chime in here as well, but we have grant funding from a number of different agencies. So some of our faculty have direct grant funding from NIH or NSF. Some of them are added on as co-PIs for grants from, among others, the EPA, Bonneville Power Administration. I'm missing one, or multiple. We have some survey research grants. I think those tend to come from NSF. I'll let you fill in what I've missed.
At some point we had some DoD.
Oh yeah, we have had some Department of Defense funding as well. It's the nice thing about statistics is that it's fairly flexible in terms of where our funding can come from. The grants aren't as big as you get when you're funding a big clinical investigation, but most of us are on 9-month teaching appointments as well. So our funding is largely summer funding and supplementary to support students.
So I would just like to say that we are, as you know, taping this, and we have a lot of faculty. We will put it online, and I think that I'll encourage other faculty to listen to this, because there's a lot of things you guys are doing that we have faculty who aren't here, but I think there can really be some collaborative efforts here. So I do really appreciate that you have come. And so I think we can have some questions. We can conclude this, but have questions if people want to talk to you afterwards.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity, and we look forward to more collaborations with you all.